Hello, everyone. How are you doing? Thanks for tuning in to another episode of Property Pros Podcast. We actually have a very unique podcast today. In fact, I'm not able to be on camera because of the logistics of Wi-Fi. In fact, I'm doing this episode remotely from Port Charlotte out of the American Legion, where we are donating uh, food and water supplies to local residents affected by Hurricane Ian last week. But we do have a great guest for you. That great guest, her name is Kelly Waddington. Kelly is a property manager at Torburn Partners. Kelly, thanks so much for being a part of this. Would you tell me and all of our guests that are listening today a little bit about yourself?
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me. So basically, I've been doing property management for quite some time now. Again, my name is Kelly Waddington. Um, in 2006, we hit a recession, and at the time, I was a real estate agent in New Jersey. I don't know if anybody's familiar with Hoboken, but it's roughly 1 square mile that houses. I don't even know what the population is now, but it is a ridiculous amount of people. So I was doing rentals and the recession hit and nobody wanted to move. Everybody kind of just was like standing still and not good for a realtor at that point because obviously you're not making any sales. So I knew I had to do something else. And I wanted to kind of join the forces of commercial real estate. And a woman actually in the finance industry took a chance on me. Totally hired me just because personality alone. And I am so grateful for that because she was actually the head of real estate for a financial institution out of Jersey City in New York. And at that point, I was doing global leasing, having documents translated from all different languages into English so I can manage those properties. So in total, I don't even know what the total was, but I think it was like 80 something properties globally. So I went from doing small rentals in Hoboken to global leasing in a relatively short amount of time. And while I was with her for 5 years. She taught me everything I needed to know, the ins and the outs of the commercial real estate industry, acquisition, asset management, even budgeting. I didn't even know how to do budgets prior to that. So I'm extremely grateful for her. I should probably send her flowers after this. I don't even know if she knows that I tell everybody that story. So I started working for her, and then my career kind of took off. At that point, I had left there, and I kind of mixed it up a little bit. I think facilities and property management's funny where you can kind of, if you know the operation and how the corporation operates, you can kind of work in any industry. I am grateful enough to have worked in insurance, finance, luxury fitness, solar. Where else did I go? I worked for Walmart for quite some time. Also Southeastern Grocers, which is really popular down here in Florida. The Winn-Dixies, you'll know them as. I think they're Piggly Wiggly up in the like central region. I worked for them. And then now more recently, I found myself working for a development firm. And basically we do real estate development and property management alike. So a little bit different than Walmart, which I'm really happy about. And I kind of wanted to kind of take a step back from the crazy fast paced life that I was living, and kind of focus more on the developmental side of things and the actual like acquisitions, build outs. These are all, I went from Walmart to Class A properties, so it's a little bit different. But I enjoy it greatly, and I've been here for roughly 2 years now, a little bit over. And it's just been a really great experience. The company I'm with currently is very small. It's a private boutique firm. So we don't even have a website. So don't go Googling me anytime soon. But we do a lot. We do a lot of business down here. We actually, Peter, we have a property out in Sarasota currently. And thank gosh, we were so lucky that we didn't get hit too hard there. And thank you so much for what you're doing on the West Coast currently. It is greatly appreciated by every Floridian here. And thank you.
No, you're welcome. Wow, that's quite a career path. I mean, the changing of the guard from 2006 doing rentals on single families to global asset management with this mentor of sorts. it sounds like all of those skills that she taught you really prepared you for other tasks to take on in life, and maybe even the one that you're currently doing. Would you agree with that? I mean, what is it about that role that maybe prepared you now for what you're doing at Torburn?
Yeah, a trillion percent. So she really laid the ground for like all the fundamentals. So, whether it be like actual legal documentation or the actual property itself, the ins and outs of how those things operate. Prior to that, I walked into buildings. I knew that there was electrical rooms and plumbing and all those things associated with it, but I never had hands-on experience with those things. And I do have a strong focus now on more of the service side, where I lead teams of technicians and engineers. Like, who knew the girl from the rentals was going to be leading engineers into electrical shutdowns of properties and such. So she definitely laid down the baseline. But my personality, my drive, and my motivation carried me through to where you see me today, because I wanted to know more. I wanted to understand like what markets were better and why was the rental per square footage higher here than over here, and I just found it so interesting. Truly. And I still do. And that's why I still do it. There's never been a dull day in my life. Even this morning I woke up, I went to the gym at 4:30. I had an email at 6 a.m. that one of my properties were being broken into. It was never,
wow.
It was not broken
Wow.
into. There was two guys doing a TikTok out front. So
Wow.
it's never boring. I'm not one to sit behind a desk necessarily 9 to 5 either. So this definitely, I keep my sneakers on and I'm always running.
That's really, really good. I think when you were talking earlier, and it sounds like you wear a lot of hats there at Torburn, explain it to us a little bit more. You mentioned that these are Class A. Are you developing from dirt up, or are you buying buildings, rehabbing them, and turning them into Class A?
We are actually doing all of the above. So currently, we have buildings that we built out from the shell. So the pre-existing shell that we did all the interior work. We have buildings that we did ground up. We have properties that we manage for other companies. So for other investors and other corporations down here that do real estate investment, we manage some of their properties. So it's a little bit of everything. We do have people that work here on staff. Full-time engineers. So I do the direction of like the service and work orders, as well as all project management. So it's basically A to Z. And that's what also is really nice here too. We do it all, whether it just be like the accounting portions of it, all the way down to, ordering of supplies.
Wow, that's quite a bit. And something else I wanted to ask you about, I know it's a little bit off subject from what we're talking about now, but how did you get from New Jersey to Florida? What promoted you to move here? It's a question I always like to ask people that have transplanted themselves from other states.
Well,
What
Peter,
drove you to move?
it was the best car ride of my life. So I was actually working for a company called NRG, which you might be familiar with. They're a huge energy conglomerate out of Houston, Texas. They do a bunch of different things, but the division I was working for was their solar division, which was headed out of New Jersey. So I went around and opened up 8 properties for them in 6 months. Total and complete, but from warehouse to the interior, building the whole thing out. It was almost like an unheard of thing. And still to this day, I'm always surprised. I'm like, how did you do that? And there's nothing that I know at this point that I can't do. So when it came time, unfortunately, the company, that portion of NRG shut down, and they were dissolving us. And unfortunately, I had to go back to all the properties I just opened up and go back and close them all up. We laid off all of the staff, and basically I locked the door and I fired myself at the end of it. So at that point, it was time. It was time to, leave New York, leave New Jersey, chase palm trees, and take a little bit of a break. And my break lasted all of 0 minutes, because then when I got down here, the first thing I did was decide to manage 41 Walmarts. So
Wow.
yeah, so it was unfortunately a sad story that led me to Florida, but at the same time, I could never fathom going back. The pace here is so I'm out of the like Fort Lauderdale area, so the pace is still very similar. There's still a million things going on down here, as you probably know. The market here for people moving from the north down here, companies, corporations moving here is just huge. There's a huge boom in Fort Lauderdale area currently. So I am not bored, but I am a lot warmer.
That's partly what had me move down. I've been in Florida for, it'll be 11 years this winter, and I'm from Central Ohio, and I just got sick of the cold weather in the winter. So we've talked to other people that have been on the show in the past, and they've said the same thing. It's lifestyle. So when we've talked to people in Jacksonville, what is driving them to want to move to Jackson? I never really knew about Jacksonville when I lived in Central Ohio, and it's always seems to be lifestyle is a big driver of people wanting to get down here to where they could be outside year round.
Absolutely. And it's so funny because I went from, concrete snow removal contracts to palm tree and landscaping contracts. And it was actually, and still to this day, I've been here 5 years. I'm still having a hard time figuring out all the different vegetation that they have here, as opposed to just like, hey, can I get some salt for the ice out front? So it's definitely different, but it's a welcome different.
Well, for sure. And the other thing you have to deal with instead of snowstorms is hurricanes, just as we, recently went through. And that one didn't seem to be much of a threat to West Palm, but it's still a unique feeling to sit there and see something bearing down on you and move to the state. I take it what year was it you said that you moved down to Florida?
So 5 years ago. So it was, I
Okay.
don't know the name of it, but you guys had just the year prior got hit with a very strong hurricane, and I'm not sure the name. Forgive me. But since I've been here, there's been about 3 chance encounters, and thankfully we haven't been hit other than obviously this one this past week, which is so unfortunate.
It is. It's pretty sad. Yeah. It's too bad that my video feed isn't working. I kind of wanted to be able to show people, what it looks like. We just talked about the vegetation, and that's the part that for me really is upsetting, because it is a little slice of paradise down here for people that want to be in the sunshine and year round, and what it takes to keep up with our plants and whatnot. And so many of them have been destroyed. Well,
Shame.
Kelly, is there anything else that you'd like to tell us about Turburn? Are you guys looking for business in the way of more management, more development? What do you guys, or maybe you specifically, what is it you like the best? Because there's almost always one or two things you like a little bit more than the others. What is it you like most about your day or your job?
The thing I like most about it is I never have the same day twice. I walk in every single day and something different going on, and it's never monotonous, and it's always interesting. And I love meeting people, just like meeting you guys today. This is a great experience for me to sit down and talk to people that are in the same industry that, do the same things as you. I love sitting down with plumbers, electricians, negotiating contracts and starting those relationships. Because at the end of the day, no matter what industry I did this in, no matter, what company I worked for, it was always the same thing. It was the relationships that I had with people that got me through all of it, whether it be, a major project or just I have a small plumbing leak. It was always, my go-to people, which is funny because now that I've only been down here for 5 in New York and New Jersey, I had my people. Like I always live, as soon as I had an issue, I had like 3 or 4 people to call. So I am still building my book of business here. So if you have any referrals for me in the Fort Lauderdale area, bring them on, please. Because we're always looking to make those relationships. But that's, whether you're tending to the client, which is also the tenant, to, bringing on the vendors, all of that management of it's just a people thing. And I really enjoy that, because at the end of the day, being kind and taking care of one another is what it's all about.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think I think that the relationships are a big driver for why we work at places and do what we do. And if we had bosses or coworkers or environment that we just didn't enjoy being, we wouldn't come and do what we do. So kudos to you for finding a good fit that works. And I understand what it's like to couple of years in, you're still developing your vendor list and trying to
Yeah.
figure out who you can trust and who you can rely on. So who
Yeah.
would you say is your biggest needs for the vendors currently? What are some of the holes that you feel like you need to fill the most?
Electrical. I'm definitely looking for like more electrical. We're doing some like looking into more like EV projects coming up. And I do have electricians that we've worked with, but again, it's the existing contracts that they've had prior that they've been using here in and out for years now. But there's always something new out there. There's always a different person that maybe we just didn't reach out to that would be an even better fit. And then like just generalized GCs because a lot of our work is build out work for tenants in their actual suites and spaces that we manage. So everybody's a GC here in Florida. Everybody's a real estate agent here in Florida, but it's finding the right one. That takes time. It does. And I look forward to getting to a point here that I have my go-tos for all of that. Call me.
I agree with you. It's hard, but I think it's an evolving list, right? I think even as soon as you find somebody who's a good fit, their life can change for them possibly, and you have to replace them. But yeah,
Yeah, absolutely.
constant.
My favorite plumber of all time. I finally got him to come work for me over here, and then he moved to Sarasota, and then we got a property in Sarasota. So I was like, "Ha, you cannot leave us." So it still works, but absolutely, life changes, people change, things change, but one thing's always consistent: I'm never bored.
Well, that's good. That's awesome. Well, you know what? Thanks so much for being a part of this. I'm glad that we got to know each other a little bit on it, and I'm glad that all of our listeners got to know you a little bit more. Uh, is there any message you'd like to leave with them, or at least a way in which they can contact you for either property management services or build outs or retrofits, any of the things that you guys offer at your company?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the best way to reach out to me is typically on LinkedIn. That is the new Facebook for career-oriented people, and I like it. But I am available on there. It's Kelly Zimmerman-Waddington. I had to keep my last name because I did a lot of cool things with that last name up in the Northeast. So I couldn't like let it go when I had to change it. But also a lot of my vendors and all my other previous contractors all know me as Kelly Zimmerman. So they'd be like, who is this Kelly Waddington person? So please still answer my calls. But it's Kelly Zimmerman-Waddington, and that's on LinkedIn.
Well, awesome. Awesome. Well, thanks so much for being a part of this. For those of you that have listened today and think you might be a good fit for our podcast, feel free to reach out to us or send us a message, and hopefully catch us and listen to other episodes everywhere you can find podcasts, Property Pros podcast on Facebook, YouTube, and of course, anywhere else podcasts can be found. Kelly, thanks again. I think this was awesome. I'm glad that we got to know you. I'm glad we got to learn a little bit about you and the company that you're working with.
Thank you so much, guys. It was a pleasure.